Hello YouTube auto enthusiasts, and welcome to my dream car design project video. This is about a car design project that is very near and dear to my heart. I was raised as an artist and I have a BFA in commercial art. And growing up as a car nerd in a Pontiac household, I've always been a fan of Pontiacs in general and the TransAm in particular. I've owned two TransAms, more on that later, and like lots of fans of the GM Excitement division, I'm sad that one of the casualties of the Great Recession was the Pontiac division, which ended production in 2009, and with it we lost any chance of a new TransAm. When the Camaro was revived in 2015 on GM's excellent Alpha platform, it was the first time it came to market without a Firebird variant from Pontiac. Some of you know that this was addressed in the aftermarket by designer Kevin Morgan and TransAm Worldwide, who used the new Camaro as a donor chassis for a new line of limited production Firebirds, complete with the TransAm name and logos. Since the 6th generation Camaro was a retro-inspired nod to the 1st gen body style, the TransAm Worldwide projects were also throwback designs harkening back to the Transams of the early to late 70s. Camaro production ended again this year, with the last of the 6th gen Camaros rolling off the assembly line in Quebec in January 2024, almost a full year ago now. That spelled the end of the line not only for Camaro, but for the TransAm Worldwide variants. As I said, the TransAm Worldwide cars were awesome conversions and still are, complete with C-tops and 600 horsepower supercharged V8 muscle. But again, those designs were inspired by the 1st and 2nd gen Firebirds and Transams. Those were desirable cars in their day, and I certainly lusted after some of them in my high school and college days, but the conversions were hamstrung by the shortcomings of the 6th gen Camaro with its high belt line and poor visibility. It just looks chunky to me. And that's one of the reasons I wasn't as excited about the return of the Firebird. They brought back some great cars, but not the ones I wanted. My favorite Firebirds were the 4th gen cars that ran from 1993 through 2002. The LT1 and LS1 engine cars were faster, more capable, sleeker, and, in my humble opinion, more attractive than the Smokey and the Bandit era TAs. The LT1 cars, produced from 93 through 97, had 275 horsepower, sleek aerodynamic styling, which was inspired by the now legendary Banshee concept car. I've owned two Transams in the past. I purchased the silver 1997 Transam, a body style I had lusted after for many years. My big brother Dennis had a beautiful 1987 two-tone model with purple and silver, and I wanted one just like it. He warned me away, saying there were issues with the rear spoiler and parts were no longer available, but being a tech-savvy web user, I figured I could find parts online. So I bought a lovely silver 1985 Transam and was pretty happy with it. For a while. It had 160 horsepower from a carbureted 302 cubic inch V8 and a rear spoiler that was indeed rusting from the inside out. And Dennis was right, I could not find parts. Always listen to your big brother, especially when he's a Hot Rod Magazine subscriber. So, being a graphic designer, I started doodling with that silver TA and Corel Draw, imagining what it might look like with a custom purple paint job and dreaming of a higher performance engine and a 6-speed manual transmission. As fate would have it, I got lost in a Toto song late one Friday night on a twisty back road, and I drove my silver TA right into a telephone pole. I was unhurt, but the car was wrecked. I ended up with a slightly used 1995 Transam instead. It was a much better car in every way, sleek, fast, beautiful in its purple metallic paint, and equipped with a fuel-injected 350 cubic inch V8 good for 275 horsepower, mated to a 6-speed manual transmission, and T-tops, and an awesome 10-speaker monsoon sound system. It was the car I'd been dreaming of for really all my life. For a lifelong Pontiac fan, it was bliss on wheels. But it wasn't peak Pontiac, not quite. It had really long front overhangs and a poorly integrated ram air hood and scoop that debuted as an option on the 96 models. Mine didn't have the ram air hood scoop option, but some of the others did, and just didn't look quite right. Then came the LS1 cars, which ran from 98 through 2002, which had a more elegant front-end design with shorter front overhangs, a better integrated ram air intake, and a more powerful 325 horsepower V8. The WS6 packages added excellent handling prowess for a complete muscle car with boatloads of style. As a graphic designer, one of the things I've always admired about Pontiac is the range of choices they offer in a single model line. In the LS1 era Firebird model line, there were two completely different front-end designs, three different air intake design options. They offered one for the base model with the V6, seen here, and the TransAm variant with the integrated front air dam. The TransAm was a beautiful car with sleek wind-cheating shape, an elegant design with flowing curves, and an understated air intake set low in the hood. It's quite fetching even now, although they're rare as hen's teeth these days. The one everyone remembers is the TransAm with a ram air option with its flaring nostrils accentuating the extra performance generated by the bifurcated hood scoops. There was also a formula option which added the ram air intake and a big V8 to the base model's front-end design. I think the idea was to field a sleeper car that packed the performance of the top-end TransAm without the telltale aero upgrades. In fact, I think it was the Formula Firebird cars in the late 70s that saw the first use of the ram air hood scoops. In the LS1 cars, they reached their zenith in terms of function and integration into the rest of the design language of the front end. But they're a bit much. I preferred the more subtle option offered by the SLP Firehawk variant. SLP was a little like TransAm Worldwide in that they modified showroom stock Firebirds and Camaros with hot rod performance upgrades and bespoke styling. The Firehawk TransAm had a functional ram air hood scoop treatment, but ditched the internal planes for a simpler and, in my humble opinion, more elegant look. Even the nostril elements leading back from the front air intakes toward the base of the windshield melded more smoothly into the rest of the hood than the ram air element intake on the Pontiac version. And if you wanted one with a lean sleeper treatment, SLP also offered a Firehawk upgrade for the Pontiac Formula without the lower front air dam. So with the SLP variant on the market, you could get a V8 powered TransAm with 4 distinctive hood and front end treatments ranging from mild to wild. But what, you may ask, does that have to do with the end of the Camaro production and the design project? Hey, I'm glad you asked. Simply put, I'm sorry that the Camaro was gone, and I know the styling was controversial, but I feel like those last 2 or 3 model years were really great looking cars. But with that end of production also goes the TransAm Worldwide Hot Rod Revivals. But again, they weren't really the TransAm Revivals I would buy if I had my way. If I were to create a TransAm Revival, it would bring back a new, updated version of those awesome LS1 era TAs with their sleek profiles, superior handling, and flowing ram air intakes. Those were, in my opinion, the finest Firebirds ever built. And that's not just my opinion. One of the most famous car nerds in the world thinks so too. In fact, what got me thinking about all this is an episode of Jay Leno's Garage. One of Jay's favorite cars is a 2002 WS6 TransAm. He still drives it regularly and says it's one of the best performance cars GM ever made. Not the best Pontiac, the best GM performance car. Now, I'll call it confirmation bias, but since Mr. Leno owns over 180 cars, I think he knows a thing or two about performance and quality. That episode started this little flicker in my brain. It got me thinking. Since the Camaro was gone, why couldn't someone build a new TransAm on a different GM platform? Why couldn't someone create an LS1-based Revival with a Corvette as the donor chassis? What would a Corvette-based TransAm Revival look like? What if someone like TransAm Worldwide could design and build a new TransAm with a C7 Z06 powertrain? How awesome would that be? Look, I know what you're saying. I've heard this already from my brother Josh. But Jerry, the Firebird was always based on the Camaro chassis. You said so yourself. A Corvette-based TransAm makes no sense. It's heresy. Hold on now, don't throw a rod, hear me out. While it is true that the Firebird and Camaro were always platform mates, there's also a Corvette connection for both of these cars. They both came to market with slightly detuned Corvette engines. The LS1 debuted in the '97 Corvette before GM put them in a 4th-gen Camaro and Firebird the following year. And the original 1992 SLP Firehawk had Corvette brakes and a Corvette Source 6-speed transmission, and it was faster than the C4 ZR1, boasting a 4.6 second 0 to 60 time. And to return to the aforementioned inspiration for this project, in that episode of Jay Leno's Garage, Jay referred to his TransAm as a Corvette with a back seat.
But it really is like a four-seater Corvette, basically.
So there. And as I've mentioned once or twice now, the current Camaro chassis, or recently retired Camaro chassis, is just too chunky. It wouldn't work as a platform for a revitalized 4th gen Firebird, and as it happens, there are plenty of donor Corvettes on the market. One of the endearing things about the Corvette in the sports car world is its unusually high production rates. From 2014 through 2019, GM built over 189,500 C7 Corvettes. There are over 2,000 of them for sale right now on just about any auto site you want to look at, so there are plenty of donor vehicles available for this project. Okay, enough for the premise and the preamble. Let's take a look at what a C7 inspired retro TransAm might look like. I started with the C7 Z06 because it's my favorite model from that product line, and I think it would make an awesome TransAm powertrain. Here we can see the hard points of the C7, roof, wheelbase, etc., converted into a rough draft of a cool new Firebird. By the way, there are no generative AI engines of any kind involved with any aspect of this project. As I said in the intro, I grew up drawing and sketching, so I did this the old-fashioned way, with a sketch pad, a scanner, and Photoshop. I started with a rough pencil sketch, then scanned it into Photoshop and finished it there, just like professional automotive designers do, I think. And speaking of AI and design, these images are my intellectual property, and all of these designs are copyright Jerry Barracks and Barrowbox Enterprises. No swiping. If you'd like to license them, then we'll talk. With the disclaimers out of the way, let's proceed. And here you see the transition from C7 to cool new TA. And here's the first design. The iconic Firebird graphic is embossed in the center of the front air dam, just like on the LS1 TransAm. This one has a hood treatment that echoes the base model, the TransAm, from 98 to 2002. Simple and elegant. But it also wears an aggressive Banshee-inspired lower air intake that's intended to supply enough air for the Z06 powertrain, which is notorious for cooling problems. That's why this design has a larger grille than the LS1 TransAm front end did. It's intended to be a blend of form and function. The headlights are sealed for better aero, and the shape of the LS1's pop-up headlight assembly is echoed here in the LED lighting element at the bottom, with the amber LED turn signal amber elements on top. Speaking of function, you'll notice that the rear spoiler retains the classic shape of the 4th gen TransAm spoilers, which I love, but with a transparent element in the center that provides more rearward visibility. The Z07 performance package on the Corvette Z06 actually has a clear cutout in the center of its granny flap style spoiler for the same reason. Remember what I said earlier about Pontiac offering different styling elements on various Firebird models? It's kind of a Pontiac tradition, so why not offer some options here too? This is the base model with a less aggressive lower air dam treatment. Well, less aggressive may not be the right word. It's more stylized and more directly inspired by the complex concave shapes of the LS1 front end. It has air intakes scalloped out of these deep recesses that lead to the fog lights on the older models. So it's more aggressive than the original, but will actually flow less air to the engine, so it's less aggressive from a performance perspective. But I think this design would work well with the base model C7 Z51 donor chassis. Here, the LED fog light elements have been moved from inside the upper air intakes toward the center, and this too is inspired by the fog lights on the 4th gen TransAm. Notice that the ovoid shape, slightly flattened on top, is also evocative of that design. I love that design element on those TransAms. It's aggressive but distinctive. This carries that design signature into the 21st century with modern LED technology. And speaking of modern lighting, here's the same design with a sleeker, more modern headlight treatment with smaller LED headlight elements. I think this one looks kind of sneaky. I like them all. Of course, I'm completely impartial. Which of these design model treatments is your favorite? Let me know which one you'd like to buy or build. But before you click that comment button, here's where I go all infomercial on you and say, but wait, there's more. I did say something about lots of choices, didn't I? And didn't we say that the Raymare version was the most popular of the LS1 Transams? So of course I imagine a Raymare C7 conversion. The lower body air dam elements are the same, and again this one is designed to feed enough cooling air to support a Z07 conversion. It's also purple like my beloved 95 LT1. Note that like on the LS1 Transam models with the twin nostril Raymare hood, the nostril element is pretty distinctive and runs sharply from the air intake all the way to the base of the windshield. Very aggressive. And as was the case with the LS1, that bifurcated air intake is echoed in the lower body design, so it's an aggressive but cohesive look, if I do say so myself. And here's the Raymare hood treatment with the sleeker headlight design assembly. Honestly, I think I like the first one better. The LED elements in the larger headlight are balanced by the recessed LED fog lights in the upper air intake. What do you think? Oh yeah, here's that. But wait, there's more section thing again. I mean, I suppose you could add a comment now on which one of the base model or Raymare designs you like most, or which one you loathe the most. But I do have a few more variants to show you, so hold on a second. So, as I mentioned earlier, my all-time favorites of all the 4th Gen Transams available were the SLP Firehawk models. The Firehawk version had a slightly higher performance powertrain, pumping out 20 more horsepower than the Raymare offering and an upgraded suspension. And it had a more subtly styled Raymare hood treatment. The central slats were removed and the entire element molds more smoothly into the hood. It looks brutal but elegant. Anyway, here's my C7 conversion Firehawk treatment with the first headlight assembly. This variant has the LED upper and lower brows and the larger lower air intake with the inset LED fog lights. The air intake is pretty aggressive in its own right, but simpler and a little more smoothly integrated into the rest of the hood. The rest of the design is the same, including the peekaboo rear spoiler. I should note here too that the large side scoops behind the front wheels, where the Z06 badge lives on the C7, have been converted to open air vents reminiscent of ye old LS1. But they're larger and higher up on the beltline to accommodate the Corvette conversion. You'll see that more clearly a little bit later on. So that's Firehawk treatment number 1. And here's the same hood scoop design with the sleeker, more toned down headlight assembly without the lower LED element. I think this one looks better here because it's not competing as much with the center hood scoop air intake design. It has a stealthier look that fits the overall design language better. I think. It could just be the different background lighting though. Who did that? And this is my favorite. The Firehawk hood treatment with the sleeker headlight design and the alternate lower air dam. This might be problematic for a Z06 donor powertrain, so it might work better as a C7 Z51 conversion. So this combination of the Raymare hood intake would fit perfectly with the Formula Firehawk models that SLP built back in the day. So this is just another tip of the hat to all the wonderful design variants that Pontiac and SLP offered. And it might be my favorite. I think it looks pretty cool. What do you think? Oh, but wait, there's more. We got to check out the rear end. Let's look at the taillight designs. The taillight designs on the 4th Gen Transams were a balance of simplicity and complexity. They featured complex geometric lighting elements inside a simple ovoid shape that complemented the smooth flowing curves of the body. I tried to honor that balance with modern LED lighting elements in mind. This is the first of 3 variants for the rear lighting. In this design, the linear elements framing the top and bottom echo the linear geometric patterns from the LT1 taillights. The main element arcs across from the center outward to emphasize the shape of the car. I added some LED backup lights near the center that repeat the shape of the fog lights in the hope of creating a more cohesive design language for the car. And of course we have the iconic TransAm graphic in the center right where it should be. This also complements the front end design, which includes the flaming bird graphic embossed in the front air dam. And here we get a better view of that cutout in the rear spoiler. This isn't negative space, it's a transparent insert. I imagine this could be done pretty easily with 3D printing techniques. As is the case with most modern LED taillight designs, this has a bit of a smoked overlay. The various elements light up when the brake lights or turn signals are engaged. Here's what it might look like with some of them lit up. And this is the second design variant. It's almost identical, but I hooked the thin red central LED element around the turn signal inset, framing it into design, and the central LED element is thinner and more uniform in width. I'm not sure which one I prefer. Of course, they could both be offered in conjunction with some of the variants of the front-end design. And here's the second variant with some of the elements lit up. By the way, I think this one looks pretty cool in silver metallic. And now for something completely different. Sort of. This variant incorporates wing elements from the Firebird graphic and pulls them into the lighting element design. I'm not sure about this one. Maybe it looks a little meaner, a little more aggressive. I don't know. I guess that's why I put it in the same purple metallic paint as the Raymare design variant. And here it is with the elements lit up. Pretty cool, I think. And here's a closer look at the detail in those wing elements. These would stay smoked, I think. That might be a bit much if they were as bright as the rest of the lighting elements. So that wraps up all the variants of my C7 Corvette-inspired TransAm design project. Adding up the different front and rear end designs options, there are 11 or so to choose from. To put it back in the context of the design brief, I added a side view showing how it might look on the C7 chassis. You can't see much of the detail of the front and rear views here, but you do see the enlarged side vent and that lovely swooping rear spoiler applied to the Corvette platform. The wheel design is also mine. It's designed to communicate speed and blend in with the swooping lines of the 4th gen Firebird body. Speaking of which, this is a deco directional wheel design. I prefer deco directional wheels that make the car look like it's leaning forward, but to get the effect you have to have two versions, one for the right side of the car and the other for the left so that it looks correct from either side. I hate when designers and manufacturers cheap out and only build them facing one way. It makes the car look like it's leaning forward from one side and backward from the other. But I digress. That wraps up this presentation, so to borrow a phrase from Savage Geese, it's time for the final thoughts. As a lifelong Pontiac fan and aspiring automotive designer, this has been a presentation of a labor of love for me. This is my attempt to revive what I believe to have been the pinnacle of Pontiac performance, the LS1 Transams that were on the market from 1998 through 2002. What TransAm Worldwide did with the 6th gen Camaro was a great example of how such a product could be brought to market, but that ship has sailed. But the end of Camaro production doesn't have to be the end of the Firebird story, especially in the era of 3D printing and specialty manufacturing. I think the C7 Corvette would be a better donor chassis for the LS1 because it's lower and sleeker than the Alpha platform under the now discontinued Camaro. By the way, I did reach out to TransAm Worldwide to discuss this with them. I actually got to speak with the owner. Todd's a really nice guy. He said they have their hands for it now with their Chevelle conversion, which is pretty cool, by the way. So they don't have the bandwidth for another TransAm revival right now. He did encourage me to look for other manufacturing partners, so I figured I'd start by putting this video presentation together to share my ideas and see who else might be interested. And of course, I'd like some honest feedback from Pontiac fans and automotive design geeks. So now, yes, now at long last is the moment you've been waiting for, I hope. Looking at the range of options I've created, including the base model, the Raymare version, the Firehawk treatment, and the various headlight, front air dam, and rear designs, if you haven't already done so, let me know what you think. Let me know which ones you love or hate the most. Please share your thoughts and critiques in the comments below. And of course, if you have a lead on the builder who might want to license one or more of these designs, include your contact information so we can hook up and build some awesome new muscle cars. As the millennials say, hit me up. Let's do this. Let's bring back the LS1. Let's revive the pinnacle of Pontiac performance. Thanks for watching.